One meal cooked on the dusty plains killed more pioneers than starvation itself. Number 7 on our list looks exactly like clumps of dirt, yet it saved thousands of lives. Number 4 is so incredibly toxic that preparing it wrong was an absolute death sentence. And the very first item on this list, the one that broke the hardest of souls, is something you might have seen running through your own backyard. Sometimes, the difference between reaching a new life and dying in the dust came down to swallowing poison and hoping for the best. We are traveling back to the mid-1800s. The Oregon Trail. 2,000 miles of unforgiving earth. 6 months of endless walking. This was not a camping trip. This was a desperate gamble. When a family packed their wagon, they brought flour, bacon, and coffee, expecting it to last. It never did. The heat spoiled the meat. The rivers flooded the flour. And when the supplies ran out, the real journey began. Food was no longer about taste or comfort. Food was about not dying today. You are about to discover the 12 most dangerous, desperate, and shocking survival foods pioneers depended on to cross the American West. Number 12. This is the bread people baked when they literally ran out of earth to stand on. It is called the saleratus biscuit. Saleratus is an early form of baking soda, a white chemical powder. But out on the trail, they did not buy it in a store. They gathered it from toxic, dried-up alkali lakes. Flour without leavening is just a heavy, indigestible brick. The pioneers needed their bread to rise. As they crossed the poison plains of Wyoming, they scraped this white chemical crust straight off the cracked mud of toxic water holes to mix into their dough. Imagine the sheer desperation. Imagine feeding your children ash from a poison lake, just to give them something soft to chew. Number 11. This is the meat you eat when the smell alone should tell you to run. Spoiled salt pork. It is simply pork meat packed tightly in heavy barrels of salt to preserve it. It was supposed to be cheap, durable, and packed with life-saving fat. But by month 3, the relentless summer heat turned those wooden wagons into rolling ovens. The barrels cracked. The salt leaked. The meat oxidized, turned green, and rotted. It was pure calories, and out there, calories were God. They boiled it until the mold fell off and drank the salty, rancid grease. You close your eyes, ignore the sickening stench, and swallow, because starvation is a far worse way to die. Number 10. This is the meal that kept you alive while slowly breaking your spirit. Cornmeal mush. It is exactly what it sounds like, coarsely ground corn mixed with muddy river water and boiled into a thick paste. It was incredibly cheap and expanded in the stomach. It tricked the brain into feeling full. When the refined wheat flour ran out in Nebraska, cornmeal was the last line of defense. But it was gritty, harsh, and often crawling with weevils and trail dust. Every single spoonful was a heavy, tasteless reminder of how desperately far you were from home. Number 9. This is the harvest that everyone feared but baked anyway. Ergot-infected rye. It is normal rye grain that has been infected with a dark, creeping fungus. When crops failed or wagon supplies dwindled to nothing, you could not afford to throw away any grain, even if it looked sick. The problem is, ergot contains the exact same natural compounds used to make LSD. Pioneers eating this infected bread did not just get sick. They hallucinated. They suffered violent seizures. Some threw themselves from wagons in fits of madness. It is a terrifying choice: starve with a clear mind, or eat and lose your absolute grip on reality. Number 8. This is the sweet treat that turned into a deadly mistake. Dried apple snits. They were simply apples, sliced thin and dried flat in the harsh sun so they would last for months. They were lightweight, packed with vital sugar, and did not spoil easily in the wagons. Pioneers would eat them dry while walking, and then, overcome with thirst, they would drink heavily from rivers tainted with cholera. The dried apples acted like sponges. They swelled violently in the stomach, mimicking a terrible, painful fullness while the deadly waterborne disease took hold. The very thing meant to bring a rare moment of joy brought the shadow of death. This is something no one tells you about the frontier. The history books show you brave faces and covered wagons. They do not show you the hollow eyes of a father staring into an empty barrel. This isn't food. This is survival. Hunger changes your morality. It alters the fundamental chemistry of what your brain considers edible. It strips away civilization until only the animal remains. That's enough. Let us keep moving. Number 7. This is the bread you had to eat in the dark. Hardtack with weevils. It is a dense, heavy cracker made of nothing but flour and water. No salt, no yeast, baked until it was hard as a rock. It was the ultimate survival food because it almost never went bad. But it did get infested. Tiny beetles burrowed into the crackers. To eat it without breaking a tooth, you dipped the hardtack into your boiling morning coffee to soften it. The dead bugs would float to the top. You skimmed them off with your thumb and drank. You stopped fighting the insects. You accept them as part of the meal, a grim surrender to the wild. Number 6. This is the plant you harvest when you are desperate enough to gamble your life. Prairie potatoes. They were wild, starchy roots dug from the tough prairie dirt by hand. They offered free calories and fresh vitamins to fight off the creeping threat of scurvy. The historical trap was simple and deadly. A highly toxic plant called death camas grew right next to them in the same soil. Their roots looked absolutely identical. One cured your hunger. The other paralyzed your lungs and stopped your heart. Every single bite was a blind roll of the dice, praying your exhausted eyes had not deceived you. Number 5. This is the fat you burn for light, until you have to eat it. Rancid tallow. It is rock-hard animal fat, usually rendered from sheep or cattle, meant strictly for making candles or greasing the wooden axles of the wagon wheels. When the human body starves, it craves lipids violently. You will eat anything to stop the craving. Stuck in the freezing passes of the Rocky Mountains, with snow falling and fires dying, pioneers scraped the black, dirty grease from their wagons, melted it down, and drank it. It coats your throat with the heavy taste of decay, but it keeps your heart beating for one more night. This is when things get personal. When the freezing wind howls outside the canvas of the wagon, you are not thinking about manifesting destiny or settling a new nation. You are looking at the hollow cheeks of your family. This isn't cooking. This is strategy. It is the agonizing realization that you have to feed the people you love absolute garbage just to keep their lungs drawing breath. Number 4. This is the food the army invented, and everyone utterly hated. Desiccated vegetables. They were various root vegetables pressed by giant machines into massive, dehydrated bricks that felt and looked like solid wood. They were scientifically designed to prevent scurvy and lasted forever. You had to hack off a piece with an axe and boil it for hours. The pioneers mockingly called them desecrated vegetables. If a starving traveler did not boil them long enough before swallowing, the dry chunks expanded violently in the gut, causing severe, sometimes fatal, bowel obstructions. You chew on the rubbery, tasteless mass, holding back tears of frustration, dreaming of just one single fresh green leaf. Number 3. This is the meal you make from the things left behind by wolves. Bone soup. It is nothing more than animal bones found scattered on the trail, cracked open with rocks and boiled in a pot for hours. The marrow hidden deep inside holds precious, life-saving fat and minerals. In the punishing deserts of Nevada, living game was a ghost. Starving families picked up the sun-bleached remains of fallen oxen from the wagons that had passed months before them. They literally drank the ghosts of the trail. It is a haunting realization that your own life now depends entirely on the death that came before you. Number 2. This is the desperation food that required immense patience to not kill you. Acorn mash. It is simply gathered acorns, crushed by stones into a rough powder and soaked in water. Acorns were plentiful in the western mountains and very high in fat. But raw acorns are packed with tannic acid. If you ate them straight from the tree, your kidneys would fail. Pioneers had to crush them and leave them tied in cloth bags in freezing mountain streams for days to slowly leach out the poison. You sit shivering by the icy water, watching the invisible poison wash away, waiting for the exact moment you can finally feed your crying child. Number 1. This is the meat you shoot when the silence of the plains becomes deafening. Groundhogs and prairie dogs. They were small, burrowing rodents that lived in massive colonies right alongside the wagon ruts. They were incredibly easy targets for a rifle, providing much-needed fresh meat when the giant herds of buffalo vanished. But history hides a dark secret in the dirt. These colonies were heavily infested with fleas. Fleas that routinely carried the bubonic plague and tularemia. Cooking a prairie dog over a low-heat fire made of dried buffalo dung did not always kill the pathogens inside the meat. You hunted them to save your family, never knowing if the meal you proudly provided would be the very thing that destroyed them. When we look back at the pioneers, we see faces carved from stone. We see heroes. But underneath that stone was a terrifying vulnerability. Every meal was a negotiation with death. Every bite was a testament to the human will to endure. Do not take your next meal for granted. Look at the food on your table tonight and understand the luxury of safety you possess. Do one of these things this week: skip a meal. Just one. Feel that slight, uncomfortable hollow in your stomach. Sit with it. Let it remind you of the unbreakable spirit of those who walked into the unknown with nothing but grit and a bag of poisoned dust. Tell me down in the comments which one of these desperate survival foods surprised you the most, and hit subscribe if you want to uncover more of the forgotten history that shaped our world.